share with you some of my experiences. I've been hiring and firing people since 1985, so I've been doing it for a long time. So I wanted to share with you some of the tips that I share with people around the world as ambassador professor to the nations, working on career development and also business development as well. Um, the first thing I want to talk about is people think about hiring the best person for the job. My attitude with that is the best person for the job already has a job. And I'll tell you where I got that philosophy from. Many years ago, I was given the task to hire some great computer technicians. And this was at a time before, the digital age. And so I've been doing this for a long time. This was in the 1990s. So, or a little bit after that. Anyways, it was a long time ago. So resumes were on paper, is my point. They weren't really online. So my boss gives me this giant stack of resumes and says, can you get the best person? So rather than look at this giant stack of resumes, I just took the top inch or the top centimeter, just a small handful. And they said, well, what about the others? And I said, well, I'm not going to find the best person for the job because they've already got a job. What I'm going to do is get someone who's qualified to do the job. And that's someone who is obedient to their boss, someone who is trainable. That's who I'm going to need. And there's a lot of people that are qualified to do the job. So never think that you're the best person for the job, because if you're the best person, you wouldn't be looking for a job. The companies would be looking for you. So that's the first thing I wanted to share with you. The other one is the ability to understand interview questions. Rather than go through a list of interview questions, and I might do that later. The way I handle the training of people with interview questions, I first ask the person, what's the trick? What are they trying to do? What's the psychological game? Why are they asking the question? And not only why are they asking the question, but actually, more importantly, why are they asking the question in that particular way? Okay. So that's something to ask yourself as you're looking over questions. I'm going to give you a tip on one particular question. There's two basic questions that are asked. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Well, if you ask about what are your strengths, that's easy. You tell them what your strengths are. Everyone likes to speak positive about themselves. Now, what happens is with the other question, what are your weaknesses? That's another question you got to be careful about, because as a person who's been a hiring manager for decades, I can tell you that I would ask the question, what are your weaknesses? Because I've got so many candidates, I need to eliminate people to the final few that I'm going to select from. So if the question is asked, what are your weaknesses? And you actually answer it, you may as well stand up, put on your coat, put on your hat, and walk out the door, because the interview's over. Okay. Never give anyone a reason to not hire you. So this is what I would suggest. If someone asks, what is your weakness? They're asking the question in the present tense. Your tactic is to answer it in the past tense. And I'm going to tell you what to say. It's 3 sentences. You don't make it all long and drawn out, because if you make a long answer, like you have diarrhea of the mouth, then you'll just sound like you're trying to defend yourself. No, you're just answering the question. So here are the three sentences. It comes from the idea of CAR, C-A-R, like you drive a car. And I came up with this many years ago, and I remind people by saying, drive your car to success. Okay, CAR. So what is the CAR? The C is a challenge you had a long time ago. The A is the action that you took a long time ago to solve the problem, and the result is the positive outcome. So what you want to do is look at CAR, challenge, action, and result. And I'll give you an example. If someone says, "What is your weakness?" and I'll just make up a simple example. You say, a long time. You can even use a hand gesture with your hands to indicate a long time ago. A long time ago, I was not organized. See, you're answering in the past tense. The next sentence is the action. I took a calendar and wrote down my agenda. And then the R, the result, the outcome is I am no longer late. I'm very organized. So you kind of do this with your hand, for example, no longer. So what you're doing is you are demonstrating that, number one, you identified a problem. Number two, you had a plan and took action to solve the problem. And number three, you took that action and ran it to completion. Those are positive attributes. So when someone asks you in the present tense, what is your weakness? You use drive your car to success, the CAR, challenge, action, and result, and answer in the past tense to identify a positive thing that you did. You identified a challenge, you identified what it was, and that you needed to do something about it. Next, you took an action. That means you planned something and you followed through with it. And then the R, which is the result, that means you went to completion with it. So you had a positive result. Now, let's compare it to what a lot of people do. A lot of people think, oh, I've got to be honest. And you should be honest, but you take the tactic that I just told you. Some people will answer the question by indicating what their actual challenge or weakness is. Okay? Well, not only do you give a reason not to be hired, but worse than that is what you have done is you've shown the hiring manager that you've identified a problem and you did nothing about it. So that's a problem. That's the other reason why you'd be eliminated from the final round of interviews. So just in summary, a couple of things that we talked about is don't think of the hiring manager as looking for the best person, because the best person already has a job. What they're looking for is the person who is qualified to do the job. What does that mean? There's a lot of people qualified to do the job. They just need to pick out which one. So the first thing they do, if they have 100 candidates, they need to eliminate those that give a reason not to be hired. For example, what is your weakness is the question, and people will actually answer the question, indicating why they should not be hired. Which brings me to the other topic we talked about, drive your car to success, CAR, which is the answer to, the question could be asked in a variety of different ways. What is your weakness? What can you improve upon? What do you need to be better at? It can be asked in 100 different ways. But whatever that question is, use CAR, a challenge you did in the past, an action you did to solve that challenge so that it's no longer a challenge, and the result, the positive outcome. And what you're doing is you're showing that you've identified a problem, you planned a solution, you carried out the solution, and you had success. So when someone says, what is your weakness? You actually end up saying, what is your strength? So by having these type of CAR stories, you got to figure if you have the clever answer and you use it successfully, you got to do it. You got to have in your back pocket, your mental back pocket, 2 or 3 of those stories, because it's not the kind of thing that you can quickly come up with off the top of your head. So if they ask the question one way and they see that you're clever with the answer using car, they're going to ask the same type of question using a different sentence structure, a different set of words, and they'll ask it another way. So if you can get like three, just get three stories, there are three sentences each. It takes a little moment to prepare for it, but have that in your mental back pocket. The good thing by having that is now you're not afraid to answer questions about what your weakness is. And because of that, you'll be less nervous during the interview. And what they'll pick up on is the confidence. So the other advantage, the secondary advantage of CAR, not only does it take a weakness and turn it into a positive, but it gives you a sense of positive feeling because you know you'll just talk about good things about yourself. Okay, so those are the kind of things you can prepare yourself for. And keep in mind, there's two categories of interview questions. One is the soft skills, and that's what I've just talked about just now. And the others are the hard skills. The hard skills, for example, are the technical things. I'm going to tell you a little funny story about a hard skill. And this is an interview where I lost the job. This was decades ago. I used to be a systems programmer many years ago. That was my first career after finishing my studies at the university. And for about 15 years, I was working with software called ACF2. It's an IBM platform mainframe security software. And I did a lot of great things with it, pretty much an expert with it. I could explain in another video why I left the industry around the year 2000. But about 2001, 2002, I was thinking about going back into it. So I took the interview, and it was a good paying job, and I really felt confident. But keep in mind, I've been out of the industry for 2 years. And at that time, I should have been smart enough that the technology changes. It's like evolution of industry is like a fast moving train. Once you step off, you're off, but the train keeps going. So I learned that the hard way. But this is the part of the story I wanted to tell you about. They asked the question, what version of ACF2, this security software for mainframes that I had worked on, what version number? I didn't remember. I mean, I know it now. All I had to do was say 5.1. That's it. That's all I had to say. And I probably would have gotten hired. The moment I couldn't answer that simple question, I saw the expression on the face. I knew the interview was over. I was too embarrassed to say, goodbye, guys, and just walk out of the room. But I was ready to do that. I knew I had blown it. So that's an example of hard skills. Either you know it or you don't. It's something you do every day. So it's part of your blood. It's part of what's inside your bones. So don't worry about the hard skills. Either you know it or you don't. And if you don't know it, it's not the kind of thing you can prepare for. Either it's part of your career or it's not. And if it isn't, then you're interviewing at the wrong company. What you can do is just make sure you're proficient with the hard skills, the technical skills. But the soft skills, those are things like drive your car to success. Taking the present tense, question asked in the present tense. What is your weakness or what can you improve upon? And you talk about a challenge you had in the past. You talk about the action you took to solve that problem, and the result of that action, which obviously is a positive outcome. So those are soft skill tactics. So hopefully that helps. I will say that a lot of online work is growing in the United States and in Europe, in Russia, Latin America, a little bit it's growing. But certainly here in the United States, freelancing is growing exponentially. working remotely is growing exponentially. So this independent contractor type of career, that's another thing companies are looking for, because for them, it's a low cost option for hiring staff. They call it a workforce. They don't call it employees anymore. It's a workforce. And sometimes it could be a hybrid. Maybe for their core group, it would be the hired employee. But then the other category is the freelancer, which is also identified as an independent contractor. So that's something else you may want to explore as well, because the workforce environment is changing rapidly. Certainly, the pandemic had helped accelerate the remote working process. So, anyways, that's a little bit of what's happening with getting hired. Look over this video more and more. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're also broadcasting live on Twitch. We're on YouTube, of course, and also on HAPS Television. We also have content on Spotify, and we also are on iTunes and the TuneIn app. We're basically everywhere. My name is Ambassador Professor David K. Ewan from the Boston Institute for Business Leaders and Entrepreneurs. I thank you for joining me. Our biggest focus is on business consulting, educational development, and also technical support. It's nice to see you, and follow our videos. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. We're everywhere. God bless you, and thank you for joining me.